Shabbat Shalom, everybody. It's really nice to see you. So glad we're all here together. I'm Rabbi Jessica Graf. Rabbi Abby Phelps will be leading the service with me, and Cantor Richard Newman, as well as Jonathan Dimmock, our amazing music director at Congregation Share Israel. So thanks for joining us. Let's say hello to each other, have a chance to welcome each other, and share something about this challenging and hopefully wonderful week that we had. Gordon, will you please shuffle us off to virtual hugs?
Well, as we all come back in from our breakout rooms, I hope we had a nice opportunity to greet one another, to reconnect a little bit. And now we're going to get started with our service by lighting our Shabbat candles. And it's my pleasure to invite one of our families to light candles with us this evening. I think we're going to go ahead and turn to David Camille and his sons, Zach and Josh. David's birthday was, as I understand it, this past Tuesday. So in honor of his birthday, we thought, and Jun is there as well. I had not seen you before, Jun, but good to see you too. So we had thought it would be nice for you guys to light candles in honor of David's birthday. So tell us anything you'd like to tell us about the candles, if you would.
Okay, well, I want to make sure that June gets acknowledged, their mom.
Yes.
Since you didn't mention her name. So this house is where the first owners were my grandparents, so we have a lot of their old paraphernalia and Judaica. So I have this candelabra, Shabbat candelabra. I'm not sure where it came from, but it was acquired by my grandparents, so it has some significance just through that.
Fantastic.
You guys live in a house that you actually visited as a child?
Yes, yes, definitely. Okay. Yeah, as a child, I came here to visit my grandparents, so I have some old memories and a lot of nostalgic connection with the house. Yes.
Nice.
And we're lucky to be able to live in it.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Well, if you would, please go ahead and light your candles.
Okay, light first and then say the prayer, right?
Light first. We'll bring the light into our eyes together, and I'll go ahead and lead the blessing unless you'd like to.
We can do it.
Oh, well then, you guys can go right ahead and lead the blessing when you are lit and ready.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahad likner shel Shabbat.
Amen. Beautiful. Well, thank you for inaugurating us into Shabbat this evening. And now we have the opportunity to imagine ourselves going out into the fields and greeting Shabbat in the form of our beloved, whom we greet every week with the song Lecha Dodi. Please join us in your homes.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala Shabbat nekabela lecha dodi likrat kala pnei Shabbat nekabela shamor וזכור בדיבור אחד ישמיענו אל המיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד לשם ולתפארת ולתהילה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה כי מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה סוף מעשה במחשבה תחילה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה התעוררי התעוררי כי באורך קומי אורי 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 שיר דברי כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה בואי ושלום עטרת בעלה גם בשמחה ובצהלה תוך אמוני ים סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה לך דודי לקראת כלה פני שבת נקבלה.
Having welcomed Shabbat to join us, we now invite you to rise, if you are able to come together as a prayer community in the Baruch.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed Yai lai 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 Yai lai 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 Yai lai 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 lai.
Take just a moment to slow down your thoughts, slow down your busy self that you have been all week, and take a deep breath in and out. And as we prepare for the Shema, give yourself just a moment to relax into Shabbat, into the slower, more peaceful mode that we're all able to enjoy, and to listen to everything you can hear around you. Listen for that call of God, reminding you of who you are and who you want to be and how you want to enjoy this Shabbat time. Please join us in the Shema.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam
Each Shabbat also gives us the opportunity to re-engage with the idea of freedom, the freedom that we gained in ancient days when we crossed the Sea of Reeds and looked out on the wilderness and knew that we had entered a new stage in our lives as the people of Israel. We remember that freedom as we join together in the Mi Chamocha.
Moshe u'Miriam, Ze'eli, anu ve'yamiru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Yai bai bim bidi bam, yaba bai bim bam, Yai bai bim bidi bam, yaba bai bim bam, Ay yaba bai bim bam. Ay, yaba bye bim bam. V'ne'emar kifad Adonai et Yaakov, ugalo miyad chazak mimenu, Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael.
As we sit in our homes, apart but still together, we appreciate, as always, the great joy and good fortune we have to have a roof over our heads, to have a shelter, a sukkah of shalom, a shelter of peace that protects us in this difficult time. We celebrate that sukkah of shalom, that shelter of peace, with Hashkivenu. Please join us.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu malkeinu lechayim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath your wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, O Adonai. Keep us safe please rise if you're able and join me as we begin our Amidah together. Adonai sefatai tiftachu fi yagid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei avoteinu ve'imoteinu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, ve'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם למען שמו באהבה מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ועזרת שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי הכל ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר, מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We now invite you to take a moment to pray your own prayers, whatever prayers you may need to pray on this Shabbat evening. And our wonderful music director, Jonathan Dimmock, will offer some contemplative music to underscore our prayers, and then we will emerge from them in song with Shalom Rav.
תשים לעולם שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכו השלום כי אתה הוא מלך אדון לכו השלום שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם שלום רב על ישראל עמך תשים לעולם תשים לעולם תשים לעולם
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. So during this week, we started the last book of the Torah, the book of Devarim, which gives the title, also the name to our Torah portion this week, Devarim, which means words. It is a story or the beginning of a book, which is really about the importance of words. The whole Torah is about the importance of words in many ways, but this particular Torah portion and the parshiot that follow in this book are about the importance of words to ourselves and our journey. In this last book, as we head to the promised land, we are reminded of the words that have brought us to this place, to our story, to our past and our future, which both rest on Devarim, on words. This is about the recalling, the recounting, the retelling of our story for all time as it becomes part of the story of our identity, of how we will tell of who we are. That's why the use of words these days in our modern society feels so troubling to me, because this Torah portion and this book of the Torah remind us how important words are and how important words have always been over these thousands of years of the building of our own identity. This particular beginning of this book reminds us through words of all the places that we've been. And with this as a backdrop, as I read the newspaper, as I look at what's happening in the world, I am reminded of the incredible power of words and the troubling use of them these days. We've lost civility. This past week, Representative Ted Yoho screamed at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez on the steps of a government building in Washington, D.C., to colleagues from the House of Representatives. Representative Yoho used, well, he says he didn't, but according to Representative Ocasio-Cortez and many witnesses, he used some pretty ugly language to talk to one of our national leaders. Let's leave politics aside for a minute, never mind what each of them believes and how they don't agree. But the elevation of supposed leaders who respond the way that Representative Yoho did is indicative of a falling apart of civility in our society. I don't know how many of you took the time to watch Representative Ocasio-Cortez's response, but she also used words in a very powerful way to respond to a verbal attack on her and to indicate what words we might consider using as we go forward with respect. I'm troubled also by words that are used in a powerful and painful way, in the ways that we've seen in these last few weeks with anti-Semitism bubbling up in our society from some of our sports heroes, from some of our television heroes, from some people who have a very large following and a large audience, especially at this time when our world wants to remove bigotry from our interactions, when our world is particularly focused on the pain that words can cause. Somehow anti-Semitism has been an okay form of the ugly use of words. By okay, I mean that it hasn't received the same kind of response or canceling or punishment that many of the other words that we saw used in the Me Too movement, words and actions, that many of the other words and actions that we've seen used in the racial justice movement seem to have gotten. Anti-Semitism seems to somehow slip into our national culture and be okay. And then last week, I mentioned the use of words being shut down, even at the New York Times, as described in her letter of resignation by Barry Weiss. Some people asked me during this week about the importance of her resignation. And I think it's important to understand the reasons that she gave for resigning from her position at the New York Times as a young Jewish lesbian, prolific writer and thinker in society. She cited an unwillingness of more liberal colleagues to accept her views on Israel. And that's the reason that she said she was bullied, and the reason that she said she had to leave a place which was supposedly open to conversation and dialogue and the best of what a free society has to offer. It's very important to all of us, I think, as we consider the way our words are shut down in society. I read an article in the foreword this week called "Most Americans Are Now Self-Censoring. We're Regressing." The article begins by talking about how people, quote, just don't feel comfortable discussing politics anymore. It's not that most of these people are bomb-throwing radicals, but many seem to think the country is so polarized that nothing good can come from voicing their own opinion. The article goes on to say a new poll from the Cato Institute and YouGov suggests that the fear is widespread. The poll found that 62% of Americans say they have political views they are afraid to share. It's a terrible comment on the state of our nation. We're a nation built on debate and the free exchange of ideas. If we cannot exchange the truth of our thoughts and our ideas for growth and for conversation in this country, what have we become? Well, respectful debate has been at the core not only of America's dialogue and growth and betterment, but also it's been always at the core of Judaism's. Our entire Talmud, our foundational law book, is built on dialogue and debate, the honor of debate and the value of debate. A number of years ago, a friend of mine told me a story about his college roommate coming to visit his family. And as he and his parents picked up the college roommate, the non-Jewish college roommate from the airport, and drove this friend back to see where they lived and to have dinner together and to settle him in to his guest room. There was much debate in the car, apparently. Later that night, the college roommate said to my friend Kevin, "I'm so sorry, Kevin, I didn't know your parents were getting a divorce." "A divorce?" he said. "Parents have been married for decades, happily. What are you talking about?" And the college roommate said, "But there was so much screaming and arguing in the car. It seemed like things were so tense. It couldn't go on like this." And Kevin said, no, but the dialogue and the debate is so much a part of the culture of our dinner table, of our family, of what makes us strong. And I think we Jews often take for granted the value that we place on argument, l'shem shamayim, for the sake of heaven, for the sake of growth, for the sake of evolution of ourselves, of our ideas, that we're taught about not only in Jewish text and literature, but also by the very nature of what the Talmud is. The Talmud is a collection of stories of debate, of discussion and dialogue, recorded as if it had actually taken place between people, some of whom may have even lived in different centuries. But it doesn't matter. The value of debate has been passed down to us. Jody Rudorin, who is the editor-in-chief of The Forward, the national Jewish newspaper, wrote a really interesting article this week. If you haven't had a chance to see it, I'm happy to forward you a link, or you can look it up after Shabbat. It's called Nobody Canceled Shammai. Our tradition demands we respect the argument. The article, I think, gave a very beautiful explanation in many ways about not only the way that our Talmud works, but the way that the debate in the Talmud has informed Jewish culture. Many of you may know that Hillel and Shammai were rabbis in the Talmud who notoriously didn't get along. And the house of Hillel and the house of Shammai debated many things about how we should practice Judaism. They were a famous pair. And those Shammai's arguments generally lost. The editor of The Forward, Rudorin, in her article writes, "The thing I truly love is not Shammai himself, but that 2 millennia later, we still talk about Shammai, even though he lost most arguments. That's a core tenet of Jewish tradition," she says. "We talk about the argument. We see inherent value in the argument itself and respect all sides of it." As she goes on to say, Shammai did not disappear, or in today's parlance, he was never canceled. A mere dislike of his ideas or lack of winning of his ideas didn't mean that his ideas were canceled out and that what he had to say, his opinion, would be forgotten. Quite the opposite. In Judaism, the dissenting opinion is honored and valued. As Rudorin teaches us, it's sort of like the United States Supreme Court, which echoes this Talmudic tradition. Even the dissenting opinion is honored and studied to understand how the thought process allowed justices to arrive at their conclusions. And the editor of The Forward then concludes, that's what's missing from too much of our politics and public discourse today, the quest to empathetically understand the opposition, the imperative to engage with the other argument. It is where we find ourselves now in a place, unfortunately, where in our society all too often we are interested in quieting or shutting down the other opinion or the other way of talking, the other person. And so often even our leadership, our national heroes, the people that we elevate in sports, in media, in government, even have the audacity to throw hateful or bigoted, disrespectful language out there because we've forgotten the value of words. And so, as this article concludes, study the commentary, read the dissent, remember the argument, engage the people you criticize, respect the Shammais. Because as we learn from this Torah portion and this last book of the Torah, our future rests on words. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Yasher Koach, thank you for reminding us of the importance of our words and of the words of others. We remember too those among us who are in need of help, in need of healing. We take this moment to name aloud or in our own hearts those for whom we wish healing of mind, body, and spirit. We think particularly this evening of Dr. Elliot Eisenberg and of William Kurian, and also all those names that you add or will add in the chat and verbally in your own homes. Please join us in singing Mi Sheberach.
Of strength who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. מקור הברכה לאבותינו. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say
When we come together as a community, we share our lives and our prayers for healing, and also our simchas, our happy, wonderful occasions, birthdays, and anniversaries. I invite you to share wonderful things that are happening in your life on the chat so that we can know about some of these things as we join with Cantor Newman, and thank you, God, for giving us life and sustaining us and enabling us to reach this time together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה.
I'm seeing lots of wonderful birthdays and celebrations. So mazal tov to everybody on all of the wonderful things that continue to happen even in a challenging time in our lives. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we've drawn into our hearts with our own zichronam livracha. We say, may the memory of the righteous always be a blessing. On this Shabbat, if you are observing Shiva or Shloshim, the first 7 or 30 days of mourning, please stand where you are and share a name out loud. Our congregation remembers for Shloshim, Dr. Robert Jaffe. The perpetual memorials in our community are Sidney Black, Charles Einbund, Mildred Molly Einbund, Ethel Goldberg, Janet Lewis, and Art Rosenberg. If you're observing the first year of mourning for a loved one, please stand and share a name wherever you are. The yard site anniversaries on this Shabbat are Jack Auerbach, Nancy Bluestein, Clara Cooperstein, Pauline Wiseman Davis, Dr. Leo Falk, Aneska Felton, Albert Gilson, Louis Handler, Larissa Yobashvili, Henri Jaffé, Sarah Kagan, Faina Kazanov, Cynthia Kronish, Aaron Lewandowski, Vanya Medvedovayaska, Michael Merkel, Irene Sladnick, Werner Sussman, Lois H. Tribble, Ella Wexler, Keva Wine, and those whom you mention now. We stand together with our mourners as one community as we recite Mourners Kaddish to thank God for the privilege of all of those lives. Yit Gadal ve'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah ve'alma divra chirutei ve'amlich malchutei v'chayechon ve'yomechon v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael v'hagala v'zman kariv v'imru Amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'olam olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei d'kudsha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran be'alma v'imru Amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Osei shalom v'imromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imru Amen. May the one who creates harmony on high bring peace to us, to all Israel, and to mourners everywhere. And we say together, Amen. Please be seated if you're standing. Just a couple of announcements. I want to remind you that, of course, we have Torah study tomorrow morning with Rabbi Phelps at 9:15. And on Wednesday evening, the next installment in our COVID from the Frontline series, Dr. Jeremy Faust, who is our second guest, who grew up at Shereth Israel and is now an epidemiologist in Boston and professor at Harvard, will be back with us for more conversation as this virus continues to evolve and stump us. We hope that an epidemiologist in the thick of it all will help bring some answers to us. So if you have particular questions for Dr. Faust, please submit those to Peter Bonos prior to our call on Wednesday, or of course you can use the chat feature on Wednesday to ask questions. I can't promise that we'll get to them all, but we will try. Our recent conversation in the community with Mayor Breed was recorded, of course, and you can see all of our past conversations from the front lines on our website and on our YouTube channel. So please feel free to watch them over and over and over again, or to send a link to someone that you think may find them interesting. Any other announcements? Rabbi
I've got an
Phelps?
announcement, sure.
Right.
So Thursday next week is Tisha B'Av. It's a day that we as Reformed Jews don't always observe particularly closely because, among other things, it's meant to commemorate the destruction of both temples, and the Reform movement is not as invested as we might be in the rededication and the recreation of those temples. Nevertheless, what Tisha B'Av really offers us is an opportunity to recognize the things that are difficult, both in Jewish history and in our lives today, and to take some time to just grieve over those things. So we have a program that we're going to offer at noon on Thursday. It's traditional fast on Tisha B'Av, so you could do this instead of having lunch if you want, but also you can go ahead and have lunch first. But if you can, please join me at noon. We're going to spend some time looking at the texts and the liturgy of Tisha B'Av and using them as an opportunity to feel some of the grief that I think many of us are experiencing now.
Rabbi Phelps, would you like to say something about studio registration?
You know, I would, and thank you for asking because I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, also, studio registration is open, and we have a new streamlined process for it. All you got to do is go to the website and click on a link. It is accessible from the studio page. I think it's just right at the top, and all of the whole process will just take place through that online form. We are excited to offer some really new programs this fall. Basically, we're going to have studio online for the time being, although we will continually reevaluate that. And we have all kinds of new technologies and programs and ways of doing projects that we have spent the summer experimenting with and that we're really excited to implement for the fall. If you want to know more about it, please contact me. But we would love to see you register for studio. So please feel free. And if you have any trouble with the system in any way, please let me know.
And if somebody has a grandchild, nephew, niece, neighbor, how do they turn them on to this?
Well, the easiest thing to do is to email me and I'll be happy to talk to you about it. We have a program that we offer where if you're not currently a member, you can join and send as many kids as you'd like to studio for a year for one all-inclusive rate. So you're most welcome to recommend that to your non-member nephews or grandchildren or what have you. But yeah, it's available to all. And also, if you're concerned at all about the cost, please don't let that be an impediment. We really want everyone who's interested in participating in studio to come join us, to be part of the family, part of the learning, part of that sense of connection. So if you do have any concerns about that, please let me know as well, and we can definitely work something out.
Cool. Thank you. I'm just going to go ahead and say thank you to everybody who participated in the high holiday focus groups that we had over the last couple of weeks. If you didn't get a chance to, great news. There'll be a survey coming out next week, and we're going to ask you for a couple of thoughts that we'll be incorporating into our global thinking about how do we do this. But thank you for everybody who participated. It was extraordinarily valuable and helpful. And I pass the baton back to Jessica, I think.
I think we are ready for Kiddush and Motzi. So we'll hold up. I'll let Rabbi Phelps, I'll let you lead us here. Anybody who has juice or wine or something delicious with which to praise God, you can hold it up.
Yes, please hold up your glasses, hold up your Kiddush cups, and please join us in Kiddush led by Cantor Newman.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kishanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit Ki hu yom techila lemikrai kodesh zecher litziat Mitzrayim Ki vanu v'acharta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim V'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava uveratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh haShabbat L'chaim.
L'chaim. And Rabbi Graf, have we got beautiful chalot this evening or not this time?
We do not have beautiful chalot this evening, and Ari would like to tell you why we do not. Can you tell everybody?
Because my mommy and daddy came to camp with me because it's my last day today.
We had a wonderful adventure in Golden Gate Park today, so no chalot here, but please, if you have them wherever you are, hold them up and show us some beautiful chalot in San Francisco and maybe around the world.
Send it again.
Okay, hit it when you guys are ready with chalot.
Where? How do you send it? No,
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'tei avon.
Amen. Well, everybody, enjoy your wonderful chalot, and we will conclude our service with music as we always do. We will conclude this evening with Yigdal. Please join us in your homes.
Yigdal Elohim chai ve'yishtabach nimtza v'yeneit el metziuto nimtza v'yeneit el metziuto Yai Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. אחד ואין יחיד כייחודו, נעלם וגם אין סוף לאחדותו, נעלם וגם אין סוף לאחדותו. יאי לה 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 לה, יאי לה 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 לה, יאי לה 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 לה, יאי לה 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 לה. אין לו דמות הגוף ואינו גוף, לא נערוך אליו קדושתו, לא נערוך אליו קדושתו. יאי לה 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 לה, יאי לה 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 לה, יאי לה 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 לה, יאי לה 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 לה. Yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la, yai la 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 la.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.